back. So this is another episode of I'm in a Car. Thank you for doing this.
We are in a car.
We are in a car.
Yes.
And I'm totally gonna mess this up because it's been like 10 minutes. I have Teresa Fujarczuk. I was really close.
You were very close.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, I practiced like in front of Teresa like numerous occasions, and I still messed it up.
Just call me Teresa.
Yeah, Teresa Smith, right?
Yeah, even better. Yeah.
All the letters are silent.
That's correct.
No, but thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
And in wonderful I'm in a Car fashion, can you give the audience a quick little rundown of kind of where you've come from and what you've been up to and what you're doing these days?
Sure. So I'm actually Cokesville born and bred. I think one of the very few, even before it was Mississauga.
Yes.
So
5 and 10, right?
Not far from there, actually.
Yeah.
Not far from the explosion. And I work in our family business. I went to Western University. I have my degree in economics. Economics, not home economics, like some of the people I've worked with think that is. Yes, really. Graphs and everything.
Price elasticity.
And when I got out of school, actually, I worked doing long-term economic forecasting for Shell Canada at their head office.
That sounds fascinating.
It was very interesting for me. And when their head office moved to Calgary, I wasn't at a point where I was going to do the move. I was offered a job, but I wasn't interested. And a couple of years in between there and then, I worked for some small businesses, being a non-family member in a family business, which was an interesting experience.
Yeah, I bet.
And then I started working with my father, and one of his big ideas was that everyone should work outside of a family business before working inside a family business to see how the real world works.
Cool.
Yeah. And now I work with him, and I've been with him almost 30 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the bigger projects that you're kind of managing, ongoing, or are working on right now?
Well, basically, as their business developed, and my dad is in business with his two brothers, they started in residential building, home building, and made a big shift into apartment buildings, multi-unit. And when rent controls came in, that sort of wasn't really going to go too far. So we made a big shift into commercial and industrial investment building.
Okay.
So we built some plazas in the area. We bought some plazas that were already built, and we continue to own and manage them.
Yeah.
We set up a management team and staff that takes care of the apartment buildings that we still own, and we got into the golf business.
Awesome. So let's just start there.
Okay.
Golf business. How the heck did you get into the golf business?
Well, my dad and his brothers, they started golfing much later in life. They started golfing when they were about 40, 45. And all of their friends that they were in business with in construction, who were all very self-made men, were all members of the same golf course, and they all started golfing at the same time. And this golf business is great, and this is great, and look at this, and he's beautiful, and why don't we build our own golf course?
We can do it.
And one of the gentlemen in the group that my dad golfed with was a real estate agent, and he went out and he found the property that is now Greystone.
Right.
And they put together a consortium pretty well of 10 business owners, most of them construction guys.
Yeah.
But
all self-made.
All self-made.
Yeah.
And put together their group and built Greystone.
Cool.
Very cool. And when there were some issues with the partnership group, but when we decided that we were going to be selling, property next door had come up for sale.
Right.
And it was under a power of sale, and my dad, it turns out that I knew the real estate agent who was listing the property, and I called them up, and we ended up doing a deal. And with my dad and his two brothers and one partner that we brought from Greystone, Ted Diamante, who is just a fabulous partner, great guy, and it's an excellent business partner.
Yeah.
And so we built the first 18 and our clubhouse and our maintenance facility, and then over time have purchased some additional property and built the second 18, and now this is where Granite Ridge stands.
The rest is history.
The rest is golf history.
That's great.
Yes.
So there's a couple of things you mentioned there that I thought was really interesting. So one is, how the heck do you go about trying to manage a group of 10 or so self-made men with strong personalities and egos in a room?
It was very interesting, and I was actually talking to someone this morning at the mayor's breakfast about this, because we were talking about how it's still such a man's world. And I found it very interesting because when my father couldn't attend their board meetings, I would attend on his behalf.
Right.
And I found that all of the partners who were certainly older than I was, self-made, and had real definite ideas on how to run a business were far more accepting of a woman at the table
Oh, really?
than their sons,
Huh.
which was very, very strange.
That is interesting.
It was not, because when their sons would come and they'd see me there and I'd be their age, it's like, oh, you'll be taking minutes? No, will you?
Yeah, that's great.
So that was really interesting, and it became a bit problematic because there was just an awful lot going on at those tables.
Yeah, I bet. So I'm just curious, like, what kind of like leadership lesson did you kind of draw from that afterwards?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. One of the partners, we were talking once, and when we were in construction, and when we were first starting the club, and we were having cash calls to build the golf course.
Yeah.
One of the partners said to me, he says, "You know, Teresa, in this business, it's cash call. It's like having a mistress." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Do you understand what I mean?" And I said, "I'm not sure. So why don't you explain that to me first?" I don't care how many mistresses you have. I don't care how you run your life. But when you come home and your wife wants to make love to you, you better be able to. So I don't care how many other businesses you're involved in, but when you come to this business and we have a cash call, you better be able to make your call.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting lesson. It was, so when you come in a group like that, or in any endeavor, and you have partners on one project, what's going on in the rest of your life or the rest of your other projects, I don't know if it's important, because I only really care about your involvement in this project.
Yeah, so if you're going to show up, show up.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was really interesting. Yeah.
So on that note of partnerships,
Yes.
There's lots of stories. I've met a lot of people that have been in partnerships that have gone not well. And it seems like there has been a lot of, perspective with regard to how to find a good partnership is not an easy thing to do.
No.
So I've been blessed. I have two wonderful business partners, Paul DeMarco and Stefan Beeson. Huge shout out to both of you because they're amazing. But I was just curious if you had any tips for people, because I know there's a lot of people that are thinking about starting a business and they want to set up a partnership before they start, or what kind of things can people do to figure out whether or not it's going to be a good fit before they get too far?
Well, it's interesting because, as I said, my dad started business with his brothers. So that dynamic between brothers is far different than what's happening now in our business, because we have a second generation in.
Right.
So I work with my cousins. I work with pretty well everybody who has the same last name as me.
Right.
So
there's a lot of Smiths around here.
Yeah. There's a lot of Fujarczuks. And there's females, there's males. We all think about things differently. Men and women look at problems differently.
Sure.
We solve problems differently. Different things are important to me that aren't important to you.
Sure.
So I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and when you inherit a business and it's a partnership, you inherit the partners.
Yeah.
It's often very difficult and expensive and lengthy if you want to do a buyout. Sometimes you can. Other times it doesn't work well, or it bankrupts everybody.
Which, not good for anybody.
No, it's not good for anybody. And not everything is sellable.
Right.
You own a building. It's a 20-story building. You get 10 floors and I get 10 floors. Like, how do you make that work? So I think the biggest thing with partnerships, before you get into them, and if you end up being in one just because you sort of inherit it, is that you really have to understand how to compromise. That you're not going to win every battle.
Mm.
For me, that's been really helpful. You gotta give it up on some issues and fight for other ones that are really important to you. You just really have to be able to get along with people and you have to make it work. When they're big assets, or when you're first starting out and there's just an awful lot at risk, you just have to learn to work with people.
And so, going into that idea, just to kind of dig on it a little bit, what are some of the things, like you mentioned the idea of compromise as one of them, but what are some of the ways, if you get into the how, some of the tactics with regard to getting along with people? Because I know it can be difficult when emotions start running high.
And not everybody is born to work together.
Sure.
Even in a family business. I think all family members should be able to share in profits, but that's not to say that every member of a family is designed to work in a family business.
Right.
because it can be very tough, and it can be very siloed, and you get into your own way of thinking and your own way of doing, and you just get so caught up in it that you miss out on a lot of opportunities sometimes. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So, for me, it's just been, even when it comes to something as simple as setting budgets, if I really feel that something is important that we set the money aside for, I fight for it. And sometimes I have to trade off. I'll give you money for this, but I'm expecting money for that.
Yeah.
And you just have to keep working at it. And you have to overlook. Everybody's got their ways of working, and they don't always mesh. But you're hopefully not going home and having to live with them all the time. It's not so bad for me. I have cousins, but for husbands and wives who are in a business together, I think it can be a struggle, especially when you are together all the time.
So this is something conceptually you just mentioned that I've been thinking about quite a lot, right? Because sometimes when it comes to the way I see the world and the way we should run our business, I've got very specific methods, standards, and approach, direction that I think are, if they were followed, it would be really good for everybody. It would be a consistent experience.
Yes.
It would be really good for the customers. I have a very service mindset in terms of how we approach. The reason for being in business is to serve our clients. It's not to make money. It's that's a byproduct of the business.
Well, if you serve your clients and they're happy, then you will make money.
That's right. It's a result, not the reason. And but sometimes I realize that I've got some very specific standards, and maybe something's, I think maybe it's too rigid. And so I'm trying to. I think there's a fine line of, hey, do I accept this deviation from what my norm and standard is because, hey, we're all people and we need to kind of get along and just mesh together? Or is that an indication maybe I should just be looking for bringing the alignment tighter, however to go about doing that? What's your take on that idea?
Well, it's interesting. I know when I'm in situations with partners and they believe that what they're thinking is the way that the path that we should follow, and they're really adamant and they're passionate about it, and it's fine if everyone buys in.
Yeah, and then it's easy.
It sure it is. The decision is made.
Yeah.
But at other times, I sometimes sit back and remind them, if you think all your ideas are right and you think all your ideas are the ones we should, then you should be only in business with yourself.
Right.
So, and then why aren't you? Well, you're not for whatever number of reasons, because of the risk, because of the cost, because of the situation,
whatever,
the timing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that you have partners, and you just have to ease back and then be extremely manipulative and get it in the next time.
That's awesome. Well, I know, but I think there's some
just
magic.
Keep hammering them sooner or later. They'll uncle.
And if it's one of the things I've learned, and the reason why I laughed so hard when you said that is because this idea of polite persistence really does work.
It can, and polite's the key word there, because bullying and nagging are really, to me, they're very unattractive traits.
And they create resentment.
They do. And they're not productive.
No.
Or they're productive in the wrong way.
Sure.
I don't want someone to say, all right, screw it, yeah, okay, just have it your way. Okay,
right.
The whole passive aggressive, I was wrong, you're always right.
Whatever, yeah.
Okay, fine. Whatever I say doesn't count. So that's not the environment that you want to.
No, that's toxic.
Yeah, you don't want to end up in that place. But the persistent, or the reminding, or the, if we had implemented my thought, this may not have happened with the customer. Just throwing that out there, food for thought.
And I'm really passionate about it, and I'm not going to let it go, but I'm not going to enforce it right now.
Yeah, and I'm passionate about it because of this.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, the why behind things, really important.
Yeah.
I'm finding that's really important with my 3-year-old son. But I find there's so many parallels with parenting and business relationships. I don't really understand why we separated them all, because foundationally they're all the same thing.
Don't tell me that some of the people you don't work with are childish on occasion.
Me too.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah, no, I'm not the one sitting here saying my food doesn't stink. I act like a child sometimes, and I got to work on it.
don't get rid of it completely.
Well, there's the fun kid.
Yes,
I'm going to keep that one around.
Just because you get older doesn't mean you have to grow up.
Well, that's why I have a station wagon that's standard. So I can put all my kids in here, but I can still have some fun. So it's really interesting to hear about that idea in terms of how you go about managing a group of strong personalities, which I really appreciate that because I'm about to enter a role where I'm doing that.
Okay.
And then that idea of partnerships and really compromise being the key to a successful partnership, I think is really cool.
And tolerance is part of that too.
Tolerance?
Yeah. I think you have to tolerate that people do things differently than you do, or take longer, or don't approach a problem the same way, or a challenge the same way you might. Doesn't mean that you're right and they're wrong. It just means they have a different way of looking at it.
Different.
Yeah.
No, that's very, very important. I think you nailed it too. So then, shifting gears a little bit, no pun intended, as I'm actually shifting gears.
We are in a wagon, yes.
You were part of the Chamber of Commerce. You're going into past chair on the board of directors.
Yes. So now I just go to events and enjoy them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that experience. Why did you get involved and what were you up to?
Well, you know what? I was asked to come onto the board by Leslie Mansfield, who was a board member at the time, and I'd met her through a few different events, and I was quite flattered, and I thought about it a bit, and it really gave me an opportunity to learn a lot about Milton in the area. We do business in Milton, so it's been great for business. It's been great to learn, to meet people. And what I said earlier about working in a family business and getting into silos, when you do work with primarily all family,
right,
you not miss out, but you have to create those opportunities to get out and meet people, or to look at businesses in a different way.
Or you'll end up getting pigeonholed,
you
narrow-minded.
You get sometimes so caught up in it, it's not particularly productive. So it was a great way for me to meet people. It's been great for our business, and it's been terrific. I don't have one bad thing to say about my experience at the board or on the chamber. It's been terrific.
Cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of people know about chambers of commerce and boards of trade, and most people that I talk to look at like the networking and connection kind of around membership. What was kind of the big thing for you in terms of what's the main purpose of a chamber of commerce and what it provides its membership?
Right. One of the big things that came out of it for me was how much advocating they do for small business.
Cool.
And how much they have to offer to small businesses who say, I run a business with my wife, and we don't have time to learn about this bill, but I don't think it's good for me.
Right.
Can you explain it to me? Or can you do a workshop on it? Or can you refer me to some material? Or, inspector just came in here from so-and-so and said, I don't comply. Where do I go to help?
Yeah, that's cool.
When they don't have resources and they don't know where to go because they just don't have the time to be current. I mean, everything's just coming at you so quickly that it's been like the advocacy role. They really are there for small business. And after I attended both the Ontario Chamber Conference and the Canadian Chamber Conferences, you really get to see firsthand how many topics they take on to advocate for and to lobby about, and how passionate they are, and how people like different chambers are fighting for their own issues. And it's like this is why it's so important to us in Northern Ontario,
right? And
this is what's important to us in Southern Ontario. Well, yeah, but this is what's really important to us out in Vancouver,
right?
So it's really interesting to see what's going on across the country, not just across the province.
Cool.
And the fact that all those chambers, like the Ontario Chamber on the national scale, is fighting for everything in Ontario.
Right.
And the Ontario Chamber on the other side listens to all of the smaller chambers and say, like, tell us what's going on with your businesses. Tell us where we're missing or what we're doing well on, or what's the biggest thing that's coming in legislature that's really got your businesses concerned.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's been, I don't even think that people understand how big a role that is for the chambers.
Definitively they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the networking is terrific.
Yeah.
It's great to go to the golf tournament,
which
is at Granite Ridge, by the way. And and meet people and enjoy the day and maybe make a business connection.
Cool.
Because that's what it's all about. But when you see how important the government relations and the advocacy is, it really means a lot to businesses.
I really got a sense of that when I started talking to Milton and Oakville chambers.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was really eye-opening. And then I got a chance to go to the Chamber Executives of Ontario and do a talk.
Oh, okay.
And then I really got to hear kind of the issues they're dealing with, and it was just it was mind-blowing to see.
It's not about the one-way street. You know.
So just because you don't need to network doesn't mean you shouldn't be part of a chamber of commerce.
You should absolutely be part of the chamber. And every event or anybody I talk to about it, and I talk to them about my chamber experience, you should be a part of the chamber.
Yeah.
You really should.
If anything, it's just good corporate citizenship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you get to drive around in a car and be interviewed.
Yeah. So one last question.
Sure. Is this the wild card question?
Yeah, it's not a wild card. You see anything, it's always the same. I'm doing a montage too of them all. So,
okay.
So it's the idea that if you could go back and tell yourself something when you started getting into business that you know now, you wish you knew then, what would it be?
Ooh. That's a really good question. Have you had good answers?
I've had really good answers and I've had really bad answers.
Well,
I had one answer that said nothing. I didn't learn anything.
Oh no!
Just stonewalled me.
You know what? I'm a chain reader, so I read and I read constantly. Readers are leaders, and I've always read a lot. I would probably change some of the reading material that I did read. I probably would have read a few more books by large business executives.
Why is that?
Because, and male and female, I think there's obviously more male written, authors out there.
Oh, on the topic of business, for sure.
Than female. Because there's always a hidden gem in there, and some of those hidden gems are really simple secrets, simple tasks, something that they did in terms of how they disciplined themselves, in terms of organizing their day, returning calls, how they dealt with difficult issues.
So give us an example of a book you'd recommend.
I would recommend Letters of a Businessman to His Son.
Awesome.
And Letters of a Businessman to His Daughter.
Awesome.
And it's the same gentleman, and it's a series of letters that he really did write to his children as he was traveling on his job as an exec. And they dealt with everything with loyalty to dealing with death, dealing with company issues, dealing with someone who was stealing. It's just everything across the board.
Cool.
And they're very heartfelt, and there are a lot of clear messages in there that really were, you can go back and reread it and just say, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye, guys. See ya.
See you.